Hello, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the fourth webinar in the 2025-2026 FCM Collective Series. Looking forward to today's session where we'll delve into economic development opportunities enabled through intentional, sustainable local tourism strategy. My name is Evan Clark, and I'm the Manager of Partnerships and Sponsorship at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and I'm pleased to welcome today's presenting partners, Destination Canada, to illuminate the potential wealth and well-being that can be unlocked for residents through meaningful participation in the visitor economy. As FCM moves forward with our commitment to reconciliation, I want to acknowledge that FCM's head office is located on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. As an organization, FCM endeavors to unlearn colonial mindsets and practices, grow in knowledge, and adapt our ways of working. As we continue to build meaningful relationships, we recognize the historic and ongoing contributions of Indigenous peoples and honor their leadership and partnership in strengthening and shaping communities across the country. I welcome you all to acknowledge the land you are joining from today. Before I turn things over to the experts, I have a few quick housekeeping items to mention. L'interprétation simultanée est disponible pour notre session aujourd'hui. Pour accéder à l'audio en français, il faut simplement cliquer la petite icône du globe au bas de l'écran vers la droite et en dessous de la menu More pour sélectionner le français. If you do not select a language, you will hear live audio in English. Je vous donne quelques secondes pour faire le choix de langue. If you would like to ask a question today, use the QA pane in the Zoom options menu at the bottom of your screen. We hope to leave ample time for audience questions toward the end of the session. Finally, please note that this session is being recorded and will be available on demand on the FCM website. Now, please allow me to introduce today's guests. First, please welcome Silken Segmars, Tourism Development Advisor in the Destination Development Unit within the Department of Tourism and Culture within the Territorial Government of Yukon. A self-proclaimed tourism nerd with experience in destination marketing and destination development, Silken is driven by client connection, working with clients in the territory to help realize their vision and helping to shape their local tourism strategy to bring it to life. Her focus areas include sustainable capacity and infrastructure expansion and fostering innovation, especially in the digital space across the industry. We're also joined by Stephanie Hardesty, Manager of Tourism Industry Services with the Government of the Northwest Territories. Stephanie works closely with communities, Indigenous governments, and tourism operators to support the growth and sustainability of the territory's tourism sector. Her role focuses on building industry capacity and ensuring tourism initiatives that reflect the values and strengths of the North. She's passionate about creating opportunities that benefit local economies while preserving the cultural and environmental integrity of the places that make the territory unique. We'll also hear today from Olga Golden, Program Manager, Insights and Analytics at Destination Canada. Olga leads transformative digital data and AI initiatives that advance the organization's technology strategy and national tourism intelligence. Sorry, just scrolled there. As Program Manager for the Canadian Tourism Data Collective, she oversees one of Destination Canada's flagship digital programs, a collaborative platform that unites tourism data, insights, and AI to support evidence-based decision-making across the tourism sector. Finally, to formally get us underway, it's my pleasure to introduce friend of the show and our moderator, Grayson Changath. Grayson is the Senior Vice President of Investment and Destination Development at Destination Canada. Grayson is a strategic leader with over 20 years' experience driving economic growth, investment attraction, and destination development across the private sector, government, and nonprofits. At Destination Canada, she directs the National Destination Development Strategy and leads a coordinated pan-Canadian effort to attract investment into tourism, aligning partners across jurisdictions to strengthen supply, foster regenerative practices, and ensure long-term competitiveness. Previously, Grayson served as Director of Strategic Operations at the City of Vancouver, where she managed a multi-billion-dollar real estate portfolio spanning affordable housing, arts and cultural spaces, and social policy infrastructure. Over to you, Grayson.
Thank you, Evan. I am going to start sharing my screen, um, and then we'll get ourselves going. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Um, First off, I want to start by acknowledging that we are on the Indigenous land, people's land, and we are joining from today. And even though we're meeting virtually, it still matters to pause and reflect on the places we call home and the histories that shape them. So I am joining from Vancouver on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh nations. So living and working here has really pushed me to keep learning and also unlearning what it means to be in a relationship with the land and the people who have cared for it for time immemorial. So from coast to coast to coast, we recognize the Inuit, Métis, and the First Nation communities whose stewardship, culture, and presence continue to shape this country in ways we're still learning to fully appreciate. So Destination Canada and the tourism sector are fortunate to have this strong partnership with FCM, a partnership that allows us to demonstrate how tourism can be a powerful economic, social, cultural, and environmental force, a truly regenerative force that helps communities diversify and thrive. So just for today, as we go through it, the agenda I just would say is like, I'm going to address why tourism matters. And in order to do tourism well, we have to be attracting investment. And then I will pass it on to Olga, who will speak about data-driven insights, measuring impacts, and give us some practical tools on how you can use it within your communities. And then finally, we will end with a Q&A where we'll have Silken, Stephanie, and then Olga, and we will all have a fun conversation about what it means to be destination development, how it's community-driven and very intentional. So it's a surprise to most people that tourism sector produces more than twice the GDP of automotive manufacturing, more than mining, or is in par with combined value of agriculture, forestry, and fishing. And in fact, compared to many other sectors, tourism produces a disproportionate GDP for every dollar earned. That's because it's a very local business. It means buying local goods, accessing local services, employing locals, and reinvesting their profits in the place that it was generated. So tourism is more than a visitor spending. It's driver of economic growth and community vitality. It powers the economies, helps the kinds of communities and people who want to live in them. And visitor spending supports the infrastructure residents use every day: trails, waterfronts, cultural spaces, public amenities, and it strengthens the tax base, making it possible to maintain assets which could have been otherwise out of reach. So tourism boosts social and cultural vibrancy. Visitors bring fresh ideas, perspectives, and energy, and communities that welcome them often become more dynamic and appealing to attracting new residents, entrepreneurs, creative talent. So tourism isn't just an industry, right? It's a catalyst for resilient, diverse and thriving communities across Canada. So tourism relies on a whole ecosystem with many players in it. But at the heart of it, at the very core, are communities, local businesses, and the municipalities. So when tourism development enriches the community, it translates into community exercising agency and being intentional, bringing residents, government, and businesses to the table. So there is an osmosis at play, right? Where the host and the guest interact, like the first handshake, the moment someone experiences what makes the place unique. And that exchange can really spark business opportunities. It can spark new investments and even workforce interaction. So who And when we talk about tourism, we're really talking about community development. So 2025 was a record summer for Canadian tourism, right? From May to August 2025, visitors spent over 60 billion exploring Canada, marking a 6% increase in from last year and the strongest tourism performance on record. So growth reached every corner of the country, right? Tourism wasn't refined or confined to the usual hotspots. Nearly 9 out of 10 regions saw gains this summer, proving tourism's impact is felt from coast to coast. Hotels had the best summer in over a decade. The national hotel occupancy hit 80.7% in August, the highest since 2014. Hotel revenues grew by 7% over last summer. Demand was strong, not just in urban, but also in the rural destinations. Canadians explored more of their own country. Right? Domestic tourism rose nearly 7%, with Canadians choosing to travel further across provinces instead of always staying close to home, discovering more of what the country is special. So Canadians showed up, and they showed up with pride. So tourism is Canada's second largest service export, right? In 2024, 31 billion came from international visitors. And that's a big number. In order to remain competitive, though, in future years, we need to plan for and start attracting investment into tourism assets and leverage public sector funding with private sector funding, both domestically and from abroad. And we need to do this investment in infrastructure so that these visitors will choose Canada and we will not lose out to this injection into Canada's economy. So last year, we conducted a study with the help of Deloitte where they went through and researched the landscape of Canada on how we were doing in terms of investment attraction to Canada. So Canada has incredible assets, right? Strong fundamentals, but we lag in global competitiveness in terms of coordinated investment attraction. And what you will see in other countries is all levels of government, private sector, public sector, regulations, tax incentives all come together to make it a very rich and fertile place for investments. And we need to do similarly in Canada. So DC will be offering a skills workshop prior to the FCM annual conference happening in Edmonton. We'll be providing communities with insights, how they can become more attractive to potential tourism investors. Look for more information to sign up about the conference registration. So investment attraction efforts will strategically target both domestic and international investors so that we can stimulate the development and innovation that tourism products and experiences. At the same time, these efforts will prioritize large-scale redevelopment, modernization of existing assets, ensuring that sectors remain competitive, sustainable, and are aligned with global market expectations. The key to know is that communities have full agency about the tourism investment they want within their communities. It doesn't happen to them. They choose. It's intentional about what plans are happening. So we will be very strategic about the investors that we will target and Destination Canada, and we can work with other agencies across Canada on how we can make sure that intention is clear so we're attracting the right investor for that community. This is my last slide before I pass it on. And so with our guidance from our colleagues from FCM, we had the privilege of launching 2 destination development toolkits at the 2025 annual conference in Ottawa. And we've had over 1,000, close to 1,000 downloads. So what shows us that there is a huge appetite for this and it is accessible. It is completely doable within any size of community across the country. So it was designed for municipal leaders, planners, local champions. It's simple, adaptable tools for communities at any starting point. So given the success of the tourism destination development toolkits for the northern and remote communities and for the rural communities, we will be launching 2 more toolkits in the coming conference. So one will be a community investment readiness, and the second one will be an Indigenous Destination Development Toolkit. And that one has been developed with our partners, the national partners, which is the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada. So we are making sure that we are producing products that are given with very strong guidance or even driven by the partners that actually have the expertise in doing this work. So with that, I am going to pass it on to Olga Golden, who is our Senior Program Management Leader at Destination Canada. And as Evan has already mentioned, she is the one who drives digital data and AI innovation and leads the Tourism Data Collective. With that, I will pass it on to you, Olga, and I will drive your slides for you.
Thank you so much, Grayson. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you, everyone, for having me. And I'm really excited to share some tools that we have in the Canadian Tourism Data Collective, tools that can have a really meaningful impact on your community. So just to get us started, what is the Data Collective? So the Data Collective is Destination Canada's award-winning national data and insights platform. And it gives communities large and small, reliable, easy-to-use intelligence about tourism and the visitor economy. It's designed to help communities understand tourism the same way that you understand other core economic sectors, with facts, evidence, and clear analysis. And importantly, it's at no cost, and it's also fully bilingual. The platform is built on over 34 billion rows of trusted data, and these come from 230 data sets from across Canada. Today, it's being actively used by more than 53,000 unique users already. And this includes municipalities, economic development teams, and tourism organizations across the country. And the Data Collective offers 3 different types of intelligence. We have industry intelligence, traveler intelligence, and destination intelligence. Together, these provide a complete evidence-based understanding of tourism's role in local economies, helping you make decisions with confidence, plan for growth, and respond to emerging opportunities. Next slide, please. Let's take a moment to walk through a typical scenario. Can I get the next slide, please, Grayson? Thank you. So imagine you're an economic development officer in your community. Your focus is to strengthen local economy, support business, and plan for sustainable growth. When it comes to tourism, you may often find it difficult to get a clear picture of what's happening. You might be asking how many tourism-related businesses are in our community? Where are the gaps and opportunities? Who is visiting and what draws them to our community? These are basic questions, but it hasn't always been easy to answer in a consistent and, of course, reliable way. And that's where the Data Collective can really help fill some of these gaps. Through the tools on the platform, economic development teams can see a more complete view of their tourism economy, along with information about the different types of visitors and the factors that influence their choices. This information can support communities as they consider destination development priorities and design strategies that are aligned with their local assets and goals. Next slide, please. So as you navigate to the Canadian Tourism Data Collective, we have a lot to offer, but we suggest that you, step 1, visit the Wealth and Wellbeing Index. The index provides a measurement framework to measure the contribution of tourism across 6 holistic dimensions using indicators aligned with the UN Measuring Sustainability in Tourism Standards. The index highlights tourism's contribution to community well-being beyond economic GDP and employment. It includes cultural vitality, environmental stewardship, sustainability, and the quality of visitor and resident experiences, and much, much more. I'll give you an example. Burlington Economic Development Team out in Ontario used the index to better understand how tourism is being measured, and it provided a clear model that they now use to organize their own local data in a way that aligns both provincially and federally. Next slide, please. Step 2, use Tourismscapes. Tourismscapes is in the toolkits that Grayson just described, and Tourismscapes is an opportunity for you to look at an interactive mapping tool that profiles the tourism sector. It covers more than 5,000 Canadian communities at the census subdivision level, and it's aligned with Statistics Canada's definition of the tourism sector. I'll give you an example. Southwestern Ontario Tourism used Tourismscapes to support investment attraction by helping an operator compare potential locations for a themed hotel in rural southwestern Ontario. The tool revealed differences in competition, workforce availability, and access to infrastructure, allowing both the operator and the municipality to make clear data-informed decisions. They even used Tourismscapes to provide city councils with reliable community-level data on the value of tourism, something they hadn't been able to do before. And this strengthened their discussions about municipal accommodation tax and helped identify community benefit projects, such as a padding dock that would serve both visitors and residents. So let's take a look at a Tourismscapes profile for our community. Next slide, please. These profiles provide a wealth of information about communities, starting with tourism demand patterns. Here we see a profile for Cape Breton. It shows when visitors spend most and where it comes from, domestic, US, or overseas. This insight can really help identify opportunity and to expand tourism into other seasons. Next slide, please. As you scroll through the profile, it highlights the business mix and the size of the tourism sector, showing how many tourism-related businesses exist by subsector and the size of those businesses, mostly being SMEs, small, medium enterprises. This information can support tourism planning and help tailor business attraction and retention initiatives. Next slide, please. As you scroll down the profile, you will also see the size and demographics of the tourism workforce in the community, including total employment and share of Indigenous and immigrant employment. This data acts as a proxy to estimate the size and value that the tourism sector can inform targeted workforce development initiatives. You can also see here the supply of accommodation by type, helping communities identify asset gaps or opportunities within their tourism offering. Next slide, please. And finally, our profiles have a geographic view of where tourism businesses are clustered and how close they are to natural assets and supporting infrastructure. Understanding these clusters is important because tourism businesses often perform better when they're located next to each other or key attractions. Ultimately, it means stronger economies, more resilient main streets, and tourism-related businesses that work truly for residents and visitors alike. That's a lot of power so far, but that was just step 2. We've got one more for you. Next slide, please. So you may, now that you understand your community's tourism offering, you may be interested in understanding what is the visitor type. Who is visiting your community and what are the potential travelers that you could invite to your community? So understanding who your visitors are and what motivates them to choose your community is essential for designing marketing strategies that resonate with the right audience and support investment attraction efforts aimed at prospective tourism businesses. Our traveler segmentation program provides the insights you need to understand your best guest. You can start by taking the destination quiz to identify which of Canada's consumer segments best align with your community tourism offering and brand. This helps you clearly understand your ideal visitor segment, including the values that they have, the motivations, their connection to nature or cultural immersion. Are they looking for relaxation or adventure? What are the preferred activities and trip planning behaviors that they have? What are the key drivers or barriers to their travels? And what are the demographic and geographic and so much more. Knowing your best guest can really help you ensure that the community investment, experiences, and partnerships are aligned to the visitors most likely to appreciate and support them. I'll give you another example. Bay of Fundy Adventures out in New Brunswick identified the outdoor explorer segment is the traveler who values nature. They're active, they want authentic experiences, and they tailored their messaging accordingly. With a marketing budget of just $1,000, they increased their summer bookings from 54% to 98% and attracted more US visitors and nearly sold out their tours for the season. The Shaw Festival out in Ontario used a traveler segmentation program to identify culture seekers as their best guest. And this high value audience that spends more and stays longer demonstrated that economic value and impact that these visitors can have on their economy. And this strengthened their case for an arts-driven visitation, and successfully secured a multi-million-dollar investment to restore the beautiful historic Royal George Theatre. Next slide, please. Thank you, Grayson. So tourism is one of Canada's most powerful economic engines, as Grayson just mentioned off the top. It drives real GDP and it supports 1 in 10 jobs. It generates over $350 million every single day. And this sector of high growth and fast returns, I hope that today I leave you with a clear insight into how tourism-focused tools available to you at no cost can strengthen your local economies and enhance the wealth and well-being of your residents. Thank you, Jason.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I am excited to have a conversation with Silken, Stephanie, and Olga. And we're going to talk about, I apologize, I'm not very tech savvy. So some things take me a little longer than most other people. So we're going to talk about how they use the destination development toolkits in their own work. We'll chat about how it strengthened their communities, how it helps them do like long-term planning. And our goal is that we can open and have like an open dialogue about, what addresses challenges they had, highlight how their opportunities were, how did it impact tourism development, what were the questions that came from communities. And so with that, let's get started. So we have Silken Think Mars from the government of Yukon and Stephanie Hardesty from the government of Northwest Territories. So the first question is for you, Silken. Introduce yourself and then let us know your work within municipalities within the Yukon.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Well, I should say it's morning here in the Yukon, where I'm joining from, in Whitehorse on the traditional territory of the Ta'an-Quachin Council and the Kwanlin First Nation. I am a tourism development advisor here on the destination development team within the Department of Tourism and Culture for the Yukon government. I am one of 2 development advisors. So we have one for North Yukon and one for South, and we use Whitehorse, our capital city, as the kind of delineation. Within our regions, our clients are any tourism businesses and organizations and even entities that are more peripheral to tourism. And the role that we play for our clients specifically is to advise on strategic scaling for development areas like business expansion plans, infrastructure projects, succession planning, marketing strategies, and if needed or desired, with all of that in mind, to align it with funding intakes for development and marketing. Now, what supports this client relationship management and how we work with the communities going hand in hand, I would say rests on 3 pillars. So first and foremost, our team places a ton of emphasis on client relationships, keeping lines of communication open and visiting the communities as often as we can. connecting, building, and maintaining strong working relationships, not only with the industry, but with First Nations governments, Dev Corps, chambers of commerce, community and trail associations, clubs, committees, you name it. We try not to get too narrow in our definition of what a community tourism partner could look like. Secondly, with these relationships in mind, we conduct in-community workshops that cover topics like digital marketing training, business development, customer service, often with a contractor or external partner that's an expert in that field, to not only bring knowledge and resources right into the communities, but also taking, again, any opportunity to network and connect. Thirdly is continuously developing resources that are helpful and that the industry and our partners can access anytime. So things like our Go Digital Destination Marketing Training Program and our resource guide, which is kind of like a crash course style manual to help buoy the quality of digital branding among the Yukon's tourism industry. And I think that all of this, in parallel with the destination development funding programs, allows us to have pretty comprehensive relationships with the communities, no matter how remote they are.
Thank you, Sogan. One more follow-up question.
Yeah.
And that is, so you initially contacted Destination Canada to ask us about a Yukon specific training manual for your team and how you could work with communities across the territory. So do you want to tell us why and what you were hoping to achieve?
Yeah, totally. So we worked with Jennifer and her wonderful team to basically turn the remote and rural toolkits into workshops and treat the content within them kind of like a learning library that will help shape workshops that work towards formalized regional tourism development strategies. So when these toolkits landed in our inboxes, our team was like totally buzzing. And what we really honed in on as an issue as we were talking about them that they could really help with was the barriers that top-down tourism strategies represent. You know, they look good on paper, but if they don't have that local context and grit and ownership, they lack the guts that I think really give the vision any sort of longevity. Um, so conceptually, with that in mind, we're going to start with onboarding a local champion of sorts, community to community. So First Nation government, Deb Corp, Chamber of Commerce, to help us not only shape the content, but also co-present the workshop. I think that everyone on this call can kind of bond over the role that community sentiment plays in tourism these days. So it's really important to reach that crucial initial level of buy-in heading into the communities. We really lean a lot on our community champions to help keep the sparks burning, especially in those more remote areas. And then getting into the workshops, it's kind of going to start out with having those like big, feely conversations about the sense of place, and then break it down into the tactical information that drives strategy. So starting with those like juicy questions, like if someone left Dawson City feeling like they truly understood the community, what would they tell their friends when they get home? Try and capturing the ethos from the people who live it every day and use that as what powers the path forward. Our team is really also trying to lean on data where we can. Thank you, Olga, for walking us through those tools. We definitely will be accessing them the whole time that we're developing these tools, these workshops. And we also have our own tourism dashboard and international market insight to ensure that the next steps are calculated, measurable, and shaped with prolonged relevance to keep those target markets in mind. And so just to wrap it up, we're still kind of shaping the final operational plans, but in practice, it'll probably be like a 1 to 2 day working session in each of our communities. Again, co-presented with a partner and likely with a lot of lead time and sharing resources ahead of time because people need that preparation to come primed to have big conversations about the sense of place. Because I really do think when the community owns the vision is when the vision can endure. And from these sessions, my hope is to get high level tourism development strategies with at least a regionalized industry gap list, long-term goals, and short-term priorities over a 5-year period.
Thanks, Silken. That's super, super helpful to get a sense of like how does it actually work within a territory as opposed to, in a much more urban. So thank you for offering that.
Yeah,
So
of
with that,
course.
I will pass it on to Stephanie. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us how you are supporting work within municipalities in the Northwest Territory.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Good morning again. Morning here in the territory, 10:30 over here. Some of you are in the afternoon, making your way into Friday, so that's exciting for you. I guess Thursday. So my name is Stephanie Hardesty. I'm the manager of tourism industry services. I work for the government of the Northwest Territories. I actually work in the headquarters position, but I work with a team of regional staff, one in each of the 5 regions of the Northwest Territories. I'm a manager, tourism officers, of course, some senior management as well. But our regional staff, we work together to support tourism development across all 5 regions of the territory, whether it be through connecting communities with our funding programs, product development, infrastructure development, marketing, business planning, or training opportunities, youth training, business mentorship, any other tourism training throughout any business opportunities that they may need to build capacity and facilitate partnerships as well through local governments, Indigenous governments, tourism operators to try and ensure inclusive and sustainable growth amongst our regions and our communities across the territory. So ultimately, our goal is to work with the communities to help them identify any of the strengths or gaps that they have and also identify any opportunities that may present themselves or that we see that they have in front of them that they may not be able to see for themselves. We're very much boots on the ground. In the Northwest Territories, you need to have a license to operate a tourism business here. So we help support through that process. I mean, government can be very, very intimidating or onerous to go through the processes, the paperwork to get these licenses. So we're here to help support new businesses, new entrepreneurs, people that are looking to get started in tourism, to get through these steps to get these licenses and get involved in the industry. We go into the communities to find out what their goals are and how we can help with our programs fit into what their goals are to help them meet these objectives and accomplish some of these goals that they have. We meet with the leadership on a regular basis. We meet with businesses of all varying sizes, similar to Silken in the Yukon. We've got some businesses that are very, very grassroots, and then we've got some that are, have been established for decades and are very, are a lot further along and don't need as much support. But we can still, tie into them and help support our smaller businesses by leaning on the successes of those bigger businesses. So we really try and support everyone in all different sizes of their business readiness and market readiness. Ultimately, we support everybody. We support the communities and the businesses here in the territory. We understand that the communities are ultimately the foundation of our tourism industry. And by building upon this foundation, it doesn't matter if it's a resident who ultimately interact with our visitors every single day, or the infrastructure that, all of the residents and the businesses rely on, again, day after day. I mean, together, we're all here to enhance every visitor's experience and strengthen the NWT as a destination. So that's kind of how my work plays into it, and all of us here within the territory, how we can support the industry together.
Thanks, Stephanie. So that was super helpful and very comprehensive on how you work across the territory. So our team, Jen Hosnell, who's the Senior Director of Destination Development at Destination Canada, reached out to Stephanie to see if you would be interested in piloting the same kind of training manual that Silken spoke about. Can you share with us why you felt that this would be a good fit for the territory?
Yeah, so the Yukon seems to always be a little bit further ahead than the territory is. And so when the Yukon helped, develop this training plan and it was presented to us, it came to us at a really, really great time. The territory remains a priority of the territory remains to build capacity within the communities, as I had mentioned. And the toolkit directly supports that goal by giving the communities the practical, sorry, my chair just sunk on me. 1 second. There we go, back up. By giving the communities the practical tools that they need to begin and start this tourism development within their communities. So the way that the training has been designed and laid out, it's really flexible and it's adaptable. And it goes back to what I said, like our communities and our businesses vary in size and development. We've got communities of 23,000 like Yellowknife, and then we've got some communities that are 80 people and are only accessible by airplane. for 9 or 10 months of the year. So the fact that the training is flexible and we can adapt it to meet the needs and what the community requires based on even access was very, very essential to what we required. The timing, like I said, couldn't be better. The interest in tourism right now in the Northwest Territories is growing. Indigenous tourism is a huge, huge opportunity. The residents are continuously getting more and more interested. Everyone wants to get involved in Indigenous tourism. The communities outside of Yellowknife are seeing, the visitors in Yellowknife, they're coming into the city and they're seeing the visitation here and thinking, how can we pull some of that visitation into our own communities? What do we have to do to, how do we get them into our community? What do we need to do? And so the momentum is there. And it seemed like this, these toolkits and this destination development and the training modules the training manual that's been provided really builds on that momentum. And so it's about turning their interest into action and trying to build a sustainable plan or opportunities for these communities. So the timing was right and the plan fit. So it's a great opportunity for us.
Great. That's very helpful. And I hope in both those answers, other communities across the rural, remote, and northern communities can see that this is completely accessible, no matter where your starting point is. And then you, of course, got the great support of the likes of Stephanie and Soken, who can guide you and help you through this and learn along the way together. So the next question is for both of you. You can decide who goes first. So how do you envision tourism contributing to the economic prosperity, both in the Yukon and Northwest Territories, for their communities over the next 5 to 10 years? Who wants to go first? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I can get started. Okay, cool. I think a lot of that prosperity lives in the economic diversification that tourism represents. So within the Yukon, our efforts to bolster the shoulder seasons really work towards creating stable year-round employment and improving career prospects and income for local families. And building on top of that, our domestic and international marketing strategies continue to focus on high value guests. So people who spend longer and seek more immersive experiences, not only to maximize revenue for businesses, but also to try to put some guardrails up in terms of visitation levels, especially for more sensitive environments, both environmentally and from a heritage perspective. I think another thing that sometimes people can maybe be a bit blind to, understandably, is that ultimately improvements made for visitors often benefit residents directly, right? So things like roads and signage and airports and flight paths and cultural centers, even support for walking clinics and larger grocery stores and gas stations improve your day-to-day community experiences, both for locals and visitors in the same breath. And lastly, Stephanie touched on this for diversification, tourism being on such a broad spectrum that it can have these kind of niches that within tourism see their own trend cycles. Indigenous tourism is for sure the greatest growth opportunity right now. So continuing to prioritize funding and mentorship for First Nations governments and DevCorps is a step towards job creation and ownership, but it also aligns with global traveler trends and can live in reconciliation in a way that provides financial stability for cultural preservations for the Yukon First Nations.
Thank you.
Olga, did you have a question or do you want? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add an interesting fact. So we do an annual survey to all of our international visitors to understand many things about them, but I wanted to just share a fantastic fact that came through our one of our surveys, and it's the fact that Canada is the highest ranked, it's the second highest, ranking destination outside of Australia for Indigenous tourism interests. So there is a huge opportunity here, and I just wanted to echo that fact in what you were both saying right now.
Yeah. And I was just going to hit on the same thing, right? Like for the first time, we've actually seen our visitors spending outpace our visitation here in the Northwest Territories to show that, a huge testament to our destination marketing organization, Northwest Territories Tourism, and attracting the right guests and those high value travelers to the Northwest Territories. And so our year-over-year increases in our visitor spending is meaningful economic activity that's benefiting all of our communities as well. And Indigenous tourism is creating those jobs and fostering that entrepreneurship. We're hearing that residents are wanting to get involved in tourism, and these baby people that have never thought that tourism was a career, that they were business people in the past, and now they are thinking that, right? And so that's something that's really exciting. It's lighting a passion. It's also exciting for the youth in those communities, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next question as well. But yeah, so, and also just keeping those dollars in those communities once we are able to get some more entrepreneurs or some more businesses started in those smaller communities that don't necessarily have all those businesses coming. I just also wanted to touch on the fact that we're encouraging partnerships and a lot more collaboration, right? And sharing that infrastructure that we already have, right? So taking advantage of the opportunities where other operators are already traveling the highways, right? We live in the territories where we don't have the luxury of being able to just drive 10 minutes and be in the next community. You have to drive sometimes 4 to 7 hours, if not longer, or take a flight to get to the next area. And so if somebody is coming and if you have partnerships with other operators that are traveling there, take advantage of that, right? Transporting visitors or marketing your destination, and also just reducing those barriers for smaller operators so that you can really see that economic impact. So our next tourism strategy here in the territory is Tourism 2030 is actually in draft right now. But we do aim to continue to grow the visitor spending by focusing on that sustainable growth and Indigenous-led experiences, which really ties back into that supporting local economies and building capacity at that community level. And again, building on the infrastructure and diversifying the products that we have, whether it be like Silken had said, into the shoulder seasons and not really focusing on where we are already seeing our visitors. But in climate change is lending into that very well, and maybe looking at the opportunities that are presented through climate change, but just ensuring that there is some regional distribution so that economic prosperity in the NWT is there to be able to thrive.
Thanks, Stephanie. So one of the things that I'd like to share is we had a regenerative consultant. He's called the father of regeneration. And how do you make sure that when you're having economic growth, how do you also ensure that communities are striving? And the biggest measure of success is how much of the youth stay behind or how the youth come back home. And so when you have a strong economic organization or a strong economic driver that diversifies the community, allows people to stay, work, have families there, you have the youth coming back. And because of that, the communities continue to thrive. You don't have cultures get lost, and there's this added benefits. So what Stephanie and Silken are saying, this is not just about an economic engine. It's about the thriving and flourishing of communities that can continue to happen. And so it has a deeper and a much legacy impact of getting into tourism. So the next question is again for both of you. Olga, I see your hands up. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that both Silken and Stephanie talked about that high value guest, that guest that drives economic value to the region. And I think that it's just worth pointing folks to that traveler segmentation program is where you can learn more about who those guests are. You can take the quiz to understand how that can support your community, your business, and who these travelers are, and learn more about them. Also, I'm going to drop a little AI because it wouldn't be 2020, almost 6, without a little bit of talk about AI. When you go in the traveler segmentation program, you will see that there's also an opportunity to interact with these guests. So we've created an AI digital twin of that traveler, and you can ask them any questions you want about your community, about what interests them, about who they are, about what can draw them. So just giving you another opportunity to understand that best guest.
Great. Thank you, Olga. We'll do a couple questions and then we'll see what's in the chat or if any of the audience has questions. So what strategies, this is again for both of you, what strategies are in place to ensure that tourism development ensures that we're in alignment with our community well-being and cultural preservation?
Silken, I can start this one off and you can kind of come around with some strategies there. So tourism naturally aligns with community well-being. And I'll touch on the cultural preservation in just a minute here. But if tourism is framed as a tool for community wellness rather than an industry, then we'll get the attention of a much wider audience, right? So think about the outcomes when we talk about local jobs or youth employment, community pride, improved services, increased access for residents, enhanced infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These sound like tourism benefits, right? Because that's the audience that's on this call. However, I think if I was on a wellness call right now, I could frame these same outcomes as community health opportunities or resilience. So I think the reality is that when tourism is positioned as something that supports existing goals, it's attractive beyond just the tourism sector. So I don't think it's about putting strategies in place to ensure that it aligns, but rather demonstrating how it presents an opportunity to enhance the community well-being. And I think that it's important to note that, it's already enhancing community well-being. And I think that we just really need to emphasize the fact that it is doing that. And we need to just showcase that, we are enhancing well-being through tourism and that we can continue to do so. And this is a great opportunity for all communities, especially smaller communities that may not realize that, again, they're already doing some of these things without really realizing it. And we just need to put a spin on it because tourism can still emphasize these things further. So I'll leave you to play on that one a little bit more. But in terms of cultural preservation, this really hits home here for the NWT. So there's a huge opportunity here, like I said before, for Indigenous tourism and for communities to kind of put themselves on the map, so to speak. There really is a space for communities to have ownership over what tourism looks like and how they define tourism within their community boundaries. And it's so important that I think that we should, shout this from the rooftops or from the top of the mountains, right? Because tourism provides, as I've said before, the opportunity for these communities to share what they want to attract and the visitors that they want to welcome, right? They can share what it is that they want to share, or they can pick what it is that they want to share and who it is that they want to share it with. So tourism provides an opportunity or a platform to tell that story and to showcase their culture. So residents and local businesses, I don't think they should feel pressured by tourism development, but maybe feel empowered, right? And the youth should feel inspired and should feel like, they want to get involved in tourism. And it's almost an opportunity to help educate those youth, right? And help pass that culture on to their youth. And again, you don't have to share everything, right? It's about sharing what you feel like you want to share and preserving your culture through passing it on to generations, through your business or not through your business, but passing it on through generations and sharing again what you feel that you want to share and sharing it to the visitors that you want to bring into your community. We've seen through some of the stuff that Olga shared through the tourism scapes, right? About who it is that can come to your community, right? Like what kind of audience your community can attract. And so I think it's important to see there, like you can define that, right? Like your experiences that you can offer can define that. So community-led cultural tourism experiences, they must align with the community values too, right? Like if you've got environmental protection, like if that's a huge value in your community, then you're not going to do something that's against that value. So being authentic to those community values is paramount. And if you're going to go against that, you're not going to get buy-in from your community. And so that's why there's a huge piece that's in this training plan that you need to get engagement with your community. You need to have that community buy-in. You need to have that sentiment from your residents within your community. And if you're going to be doing anything that relates to culture, it needs to be authentic and it needs to include the local people. So I'm going to end my piece on that.
Yeah, I definitely echo everything that you mentioned, especially in terms of, kind of like a rising tide lifts all boats when we're all working towards the same goal and moving towards something in the same, not necessarily the same way, but with the same values. I think that's when we see the most success and certainly the most sustainable success. So kind of going back to the strategies, I know I talked about top-down strategies being less effective, but we do have our tourism development strategy, which focuses on things like sustainability metrics and Indigenous partnership, which Stephanie just touched on so beautifully, and year-round tourism dispersion, each of which in their own right create a bit of a force field around places, right? And I'll go back to what I mentioned in the first question about how we work with the municipalities, and it really comes back to relationships and managing those kind of like expectations, but also sentiment data collection when we're in the communities. How are things going? What are people talking about? What could have made last winter stronger, both from an industry perspective, but day-to-day life perspective? And sometimes we can act on them and sometimes we can't, but we always bring them back to the team, and we kind of like share that with the senior leadership in the department. And I think relationships are vital to this type of work, especially when you have thousands of kilometers between communities. Having those conversations and taking opportunities to go to the community farmers markets when you're in town for work, or go to like I was just in Burwash Landing, a community of 80 people, for my fourth time since May, right? So it's kind of inevitable and paramount to keep those relationships fueled and have conversations around what day-to-day life in the communities really looks like.
Thank you, Steph and Silken. So I'm mindful that we have 4 minutes left, because I can see Evan has come on, and that's usually a good sign that I have to like be winding this thing up. I first want to thank both of you. I do just want to share, because there is a question in here, and I think that can help at a much broader level for many of the questions that I've listed here. Is your tourism development agency. So we at Destination Canada are the national promotion agency. Both we do marketing. Olga spoke about all the data and research. And then my unit, which is the Destination Development Unit and Investment Attraction, can help, I mean, across the country, whichever level of maturity or nascency you are, we can tailor the solution to work with you. So that's just one. And similarly, we work in very close collaboration with our provincial and territorial partners. So you have both Stephanie and Silken here who do that work, and they have colleagues across. And similarly, we have similar colleagues across the country who can assist and guide and support wherever you are, what you're looking for. Also, at the next level down, we have a lot of some things called the destination marketing organizations or destination management organizations. So in smaller municipalities, you will have, or an economic development agency who knows some of this work. So you should feel free to reach out to them. Please feel to reach out to me, and I'm happy to make sure that who is the partner we can get through to you. Happy to do that work. There's a lot of questions in here. I don't think we're going to get through it. Evan, is it time for me to pass on to you?
Yeah, I think maybe what we'll do is we'll round up these questions and I'll send them out to the panel. And if there's time, we can develop some responses and feed them back to the whole group, in fact, when we send out the recording. So as part of when we send the email of the recording for this session, we'll do our best to answer any questions. If you have burning questions, please drop them in the chat panel and we'll try to get to them as well. I just want to thank everyone, Silken, Stephanie, Olga, Grayson, for these learnings and tangible steps for communities to take in pursuit of tourism opportunities. And thank you to Destination Canada for your support of today's discussion. As I mentioned, we will have a recording of today's conversation posted to fcm.ca in the coming days, and it will be sent directly to all registrants by email, along with additional links and resources mentioned during today's session. And we'll do our best to answer as many of the questions you've dropped in the chat pane at the same time. So please feel free to share this resource with your colleagues when it becomes available. And if you've enjoyed today's conversation, our next FCM Collective webinar will take place on December 18th, and it is entitled Idea Exchange, Tangible Solutions to Community-Based Social Issues. For now, be well, everyone. Thank you.